All right, guys, I'm in a very, very dangerous place right now. Ancient history. A long, long time ago, at the very, very dawn of the game, I started playing Magic the Gathering. Before the competitive scene was even a thing. Not that I know what the competitive scene is right now, but I was in. I really enjoyed playing the game. I had a number of cards, and at some point, we see this often with new systems. You're playing with some friends. There wasn't really an established community. My friends moved away. I had nobody to play with, so I gave my cards to a good friend who years later sold a few and bought a car. And I've been out of Magic ever since. But now I got a couple of friends, and one friend in particular that I love gaming with, he's into Magic. And I'm feeling that pull. And this is a very, very dangerous place. And I'm doing my best to jump back into Magic the correct way. And really like baby steps, baby cakes, because I've been out of the game so long. It's like at this point, I've never really been in the game. So I've been exploring different ideas and trying to read up as much as I can and try to understand where the game is right now and how it develops. And this led to a very, very interesting question. An interesting question, which is the focus of today's vlog, tying into yesterday's vlog, where we asked this question: miniature war games, collectible war games. You've got your miniatures on the table, but they represent specific units, and those units you pay money for to buy the models to build and paint and play. Similar to Magic the Gathering. I've got my cards. I guess we're talking analog here. We're not talking digital. I've got my cards that I have to acquire somehow and play them. And the interesting thing about yesterday's question was Games Workshop. Games Workshop is a miniature-based company. Warhammer 40,000, a sci-fi-based miniatures game. Maybe you're aware of those words, 40K and Games Workshop. But if not, Games Workshop is a very, very aggressive and ruthless company when it comes to their intellectual property, their IP. They control it. They throw around lawsuits. They suppress it. And the battle right now, and this really kind of got me thinking in relation to Magic the Gathering, the battle right now with Games Workshop is we're talking physically printed miniatures. And these miniatures, you can replicate them with 3D printing. So I can buy a box of Space Marines for like $100, or I can just print them out on my 3D printer for like 4 cents each. And we're seeing, and the armies in Warhammer 40,000, it's not just like 5 or 6 miniatures. It's 30, 40, 50, 60. Some of them are very, very big, very, very expensive. So you're looking at a couple of $1,000s to play your army, plus throwing another $150 to $200 every month to keep it up to date if you want to play competitive, plus paints, plus the time, and you're looking like it's like a new car every couple of years. So you see people aggressively printing out 3D miniatures or possibly recasting miniatures, and at this point, the tech has reached that zenith where I've seen them. You'd be hard-pressed, very, very hard, to figure out what's the cast, what's the 3D printed versus what's the original. And Games Workshop hosts a number of events. They have a number of competitive tournaments, and they have stated no 3D printed models, no recasts. They have to be originals. And I understand that because they want to protect their IP. But on the other hand, it's like, guys, you're so ruthless with the prices. I mean, this is capitalism. I'm all for making money. I want people to get paid for their time and their effort, and I want a company to make money because I want more 40K stuff out there. But when you're just a ruthless company that it's clear you're just there for the cash and you don't care about your player base, you just don't care about them, but you have a loyal player base and a very, very fun IP to play, we're seeing people cast their own armies. We're seeing people print their own armies. And Games Workshop can not only not stop it, they can't even tell. You're going to cut my miniature in half that I spent hours and hours painting. So how does this relate to Magic? Well, in the comments on this video from yesterday up in my archive, there were some similar analogies to the Magic the Gathering tournament scene because just from what I understand and looking into jumping into Magic, and again, I'm going to do this right. I'm not just going to go out and buy tons of stuff because I have no idea. I'm going to actually exercise impulse control for one of the first times in my life. At least that's what I say right now. The idea is people are saying, well, Fritz, what's the complaint? I mean, you can't show up to a Magic tournament with fake cards, or you can't just print out on paper a fake card. I mean, maybe you could, I guess, if you're playing with your friends or you want to test stuff out, but then you know where it's going to be in your deck. But it needs to be legitimate cards. And my thought was, well, and we're putting aside ethics, morality, and doing the right thing in the gaming community. You know, we're just asking this on a very, very high level what-if question. Some of the printed stuff out there, some of the forgeries that are out there for different things, different collectibles, like what's to stop people from magicking up some Magic cards, 3D printed Magic cards, so to speak, cycling them in their deck and play them? Now, I think the stakes are much, much higher, ethics aside. Not that we can necessarily put gaming ethics aside, but you get caught, you get banned. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm sure there's a lot of that, but some of that might even be legitimate, where you buy some cards. How do I know if they're real? How do I know if they're fake? But the argument was, you know, Magic being a paper-based game, a cardstock-based game, for some reason, if there was a way to effectively 3D print your cards, Games Workshop can't stop their 3D printed models. How would you stop that in Magic? How does the Magic community approach that, address that? And if there was some Magic printer to print that out, and you started seeing 3D printed Magic cards, and you couldn't tell the difference between them, how does that shift the meta? How does that even begin to change things in the game? So I don't know if it's a one-on-one parallel, but it really got me thinking about, if you're a company selling old school medium, it's like currency, you know, selling old school pen and paper, cardboard stock, that tech still isn't quite there compared to what seemed like a safe bet back in the day, physical miniatures. Who can print out a miniature? You can't. The best you could do is have some like really awful cast or a proxy. But now in the course of 5 to 8 years and various tech coming online, now there's no difference. It's almost impossible to spot. It is literally transforming the miniature wargaming industry, the 40K industry. Is there a similar parallel to Magic?